So let's get started. All right, I'm going to create, and in Onshape they call these documents. I'm just going to go ahead and name it now, key fob 398, and click create. So it brings up here, we have on this side is kind of a timeline. Up top is our tools that will change depending on where we are in the process. You may see differences here as we go. Over here is a view cube that allows you to kind of move around if you are not keen on using your mouse to do so. A couple of things you want to take a look at here is your preferences. Typically, I want to be a millimeter for my length units. It's up to you, but if you're doing anything with 3D printing, and especially with this key fob or anything that I'm working with, I would recommend the default units of millimeters. So the rest of it won't be particularly of use to us for this project, but you may run into things with other projects that you're working on where you may need to change your units here. Also notice I am on this subscription education, as you should be. Hopefully, that'll last us plenty of time until you are out in the industry. All right, so let's head on back here. All right, so first thing I want to do is create a sketch. That's with 3D printing, or excuse me, not 3D printing, but 3D modeling. Typically, you're making a drawing in 2 dimensions and then either pulling it up, extruding it, or pushing it in to cut, but also an extrude cut is the typical process. When we start out, we don't have any surfaces of our model to work with, so we're going to start on these planes, or in this case, I'm going to start on one of these planes. So I'm going to go up here and click Sketch, and then I need to select a sketch plane. I'm going to select this one here, the top, and you'll see it kind of makes a larger version of that. Now, the issue is you may be used to Fusion or Inventor. It will zoom to this sketch size, or sketch plane, but in this case it doesn't. So I'm going to click the N key for normal, so that will face me perpendicular looking down onto this plane. And then I really don't want the plane here. I just want the sketch plane. So I'm going to hit the P key, and that allows me to get rid of all the planes. All right. So going to select a center point rectangle. This is Sketchy's, the sketching ones for rectangles. And you have a few different ones. Center point's the one I'm going to use. I'm going to go down here and zoom in a little bit. It doesn't really help. I'm going to hover over the center point, and you'll see it's a square. Click and let go, and then I'm going to pull out a rectangle. Doesn't really matter what size particularly. And I'm going to click one more time. Now you'll see that the dimensions are highlighted, or it's not a very good highlight compared to Fusion, but here we are. So it has a square around it. This one is going to be 50. I hit enter, and now it's asking for the other dimension. That's going to be 20, and I hit enter. All right, so now I have a rectangle 50 by 20 millimeters. Remember, those default units were in millimeters. I'm also still in the rectangle sketching tool. So here is another one. You can actually just hit the escape key or the space bar to exit out of that tool. So next tool I'm going to go is click up here on a circle or center point circle. Click that. And then now I will zoom in and it'll be a little bit easier to see. I'm going to draw a circle on this edge here. And if I hover and get close to the center, you'll see a square pop up. That's telling me that's the center of that side. I'm going to click once and let go. And then I'm going to move my cursor up. You can go up top here or down below. It doesn't make a difference, but have it snap to the corner of your rectangle. And you'll notice here it says 20 and it has a circle with a line through it telling me that's the diameter. Now I'm still in circle mode and I want to stay in it for a minute. I'm going to draw one more circle, also centered at the midpoint of that side. And this one I'm going to pull out, and I'm going to click and then type in 13 for 13 millimeters, and it's showing that dimension here. So that's the end of my sketches for this one. This is the general shape for my key fob. So I'm going to go ahead and click this green check here telling Onshape that my sketch is completed. All right, so now I have the sketch looking straight down at it, which is good for sketching, but when you go to extrude, it's not very convenient. Now, in preferences as well, there are, if you scroll down a little bit further, mouse controls. And you can set these on whatever you're comfortable with. If you've never done anything before, you can try Onshape. Since I've used AutoCAD and Inventor and Fusion 360, I'm setting it to this one simply because it's more comfortable or more intuitive for me because I learned it using those programs. If you've learned using SolidWorks, you can go to theirs. There's not a lot of difference between everything, but it's mostly how to rotate things in space, how to zoom in, stuff like that. Also, if you're using a scroll wheel in the middle of the mouse, hopefully you're using a mouse and not a trackpad. If the way that you run the mouse middle scroll wheel, when you're running it, if it looks like it's going in the opposite direction, you're zooming in when you think it should zoom out, or zooming out when it should zoom in, you can reverse that here. A lot of times Macs have the same thing with zoom or scroll direction on the screen when doing like long websites or long Word documents or something like that. So if it's not intuitive like what you're doing, you can click it here and go back. All right, so now let's go back here, return to document. So it was like this, and this is what I was getting at. So I'm going to rotate this a little bit, kind of orbit as it is, and I'm doing it in AutoCAD version. So I hold down the Shift key and the scroll wheel, and this allows me to kind of tilt this. You can also do it here. So we were like this, and I'll just click this bottom right corner, this view cube here, and put it on its side. This is why I was talking about it's a lot nicer when you go to extrude to have it in this view. I'm also holding down the scroll wheel and I can pan left and right, up and down. So this will allow me to kind of move things around a little bit. You can also do a lot of that up here. All right, so what I want to do is I want to go up here to extrude. This is where we have a sketch. It's two-dimensional, and extrude now brings me to the third dimension. So I'm going to click extrude, and I'm going to select this outer kind of rainbow here, this one here, and here. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see what's going on. So you can see it's extruding all of this except that middle hole there. So I want that to be hollow. The only other issue is, though, this is way too tall. This is not a key fob. This is more like a doorstop. So I'm going to break this down a little bit and go down to about 5 millimeter. All right. And you can probably even go a little bit smaller if you want it a little bit quicker. 4 millimeter might be all right. Somewhere in that range, between 4 and 5. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and click the check to tell it I'm done extruding. So now if I take a look at this, I have essentially most of the key fob completed now. The key ring will go through this hole. And then over here, I'm going to have some lettering, which I'm going to do next. All right. And then lastly, we'll round off these sharp corners a little bit. All right, so let's get some text on this key fob. So I'm going to do sketch again. And now instead of picking a plane, I'm actually going to pick this face right here. And then again, it doesn't zoom or it doesn't rotate to look straight at it. So I'm going to hit the N, as in Nancy, and that will normalize me to that face. Okay. Now, I don't want to hit X or anything. Just leave that. I know it's tempting to kind of click there, but let's leave that alone. All right, so moving down a little bit, we've done a rectangle. We've done circles. Those are common. Arcs are another one as well. And then shapes, polygons. But we're going to move down a little bit to text. So text works kind of the same way as the rectangle works, but I need to lay out where my text is going to go. So I don't want it to go over into the circle. I don't obviously want it to go off of the key fob. So I'm going to select about right here, click and hold, and then drag out to near the bottom of the key fob. I don't want to go over or past any part of it. I want to keep it inside there and give it a little bit of a border. I don't want my letters going right up to the edge. All right. So now I've let go and it's allowing this default text. I'm going to highlight and just type in ECE and make it bold. And then that should do it. So that's all I want. Now, if you want your initials or you want something longer, that's fine. If you get too long, however, it may actually cause it to wrap around, or you may have to extend your key fob a little bit. The printer can only print so small, so be careful there. So there's my letters. And again, I'm not really happy with being face on here because I wanted to extrude these. So I'm going to click this bottom right corner again. And another thing you can do once you get it to here, like if it's zoomed in too much, you can hit the F key for Frank, but it's also for fit. So that will fit your sketch or your part in the screen. All right, so that sketch is done. I click the check mark and now extrude again. So this time I'm going to change this before we even get started. I'm going to just do 1 millimeter and we're going to click the E, the C, and the other E and click OK. So there we have it, our key fob with our letters extruded a little bit. They're not too far out, but it's pretty good. Click that again. All right, so now these corners can actually be remarkably sharp. So we're going to round this stuff over a little bit. So to do that, that is called a fillet. I'm going to click right here and click this one. You'll see what it does here in a second. It just rounds that over, kind of like taking a piece of sandpaper and rounding the whole thing over. I'm going to move by holding down the middle mouse button, the scroll wheel. I can move around. I'm going to click here. That's going to round that top edge. Also going to click this one. That'll round it. And here. And then I'm going to hold down Shift and my mouse button, but you can also do it here as well. I'm going to round this one as well. So what do I got? Well, now I've rounded this one, this interior of this hole, and then all around these other ones. Now you may wonder, hey, should I do the bottom one? You could, but when you start rounding the bottom that's going to go onto the print bed, you can end up with some parts that are unsupported and can kind of look bad. So we're going to leave that one as flat for right now and go back here. And I'm good with the fillets, so I'm going to click the checkbox. All right, so there we have it. You can see also now why I didn't want the letters to go right up to the edge, because the fillet is kind of taking that edge and rounding it over a little bit. So if I was unhappy with any of that, I could actually go back to this sketch here, right-click and hit Edit, and then change some things up, move this around, things like that. But I'm going to put her back there and be good with that. All right. So that should do it. Now we're going to need to print it. So last thing, I'm going to go down here now. This is all of the kind of like the timeline of what I did. I did a sketch, then I extruded, did another sketch, extruded, and then I filleted or rounded off those edges. This is the part that I created right here. I'm going to right click and go to export. So what do I want to do? I want to export this. I can call it whatever I want, key fob. And then the format I want is STL. That is what the printers recognize. There's a few others here that they recognize, but STL is a good format for now. Leaving it in binary. Millimeter is important here. You do not want inches. The slicer software Cura recognizes things coming in millimeters. So go ahead and export that, and it's going to ask where to put it. So you can put it wherever you want on your desktop or on your laptop or whatever, or even save it to a flash drive. I'm just going to put it right here for now, and then click Save. So that'll take care of it. Next step will be opening it up in Cura and then slicing it and printing it. But this is the basic design process for designing something in Onshape. Thanks for watching.